Evening. This is Professor Mani welcoming you on behalf of the Bombay Management Association. It's a very special evening for us here today. As part of our Friday Fundamentals MDPs, which we have been organizing over the last 11 months, this session today is the first of its kind on the BMA digital platform. And that is a book launch ceremony followed by talking away. So we were saying this is a very unique session where we have the book launch on the digital platform, followed by meeting the authors and learning a little more about the book. This evening, we are delighted to have with us two very eminent people, Mr. Walter Vieira and Mr. Gautam Mahajan, who have authored this wonderful book on customer starvation can kill. More about it from them. But I'm first, on behalf of all the past presidents of Bombay Management Association and all the members of the executive committee and my colleagues, delighted to welcome Mr. M Damodaran. I'm sure everybody who's here in this audience needs no introduction to Mr. Damodaran. A doyen of the financial services industry. Perhaps we will know that he was the former chairman of SEBI, UTI, IDBI, just to name a few. And subsequently, post-retirement, his second innings seems to be more glorious than his first innings. He's part of a founding organization into corporate consultancy in the field of corporate governance, and today is an independent director and non-executive chairman to several large conglomerates in the country. To name a few, L&T, Mahindra, Bajaj, and of course, the so renowned Indigo Airlines. Continues to be part of several committees of the Government of India as part of the Ministry of Corporate Affairs, the Reserve Bank of India, and was also the founding chairman of the Board of Advisors of IIM Trichy. It's indeed an honor, sir, Damodaran sir, that you are here with us this evening. BMA is delighted to welcome you back. You've always been a friend, philosopher, guide, and well-wisher to BMA, and may we invite you today as the chief guest to do the book launch of this wonderful book by Mr. Walter Vieira and Mr. Gautam Mahajan on customer value starvation can kill. Over to you, Mr. Damodaran. Namaskar.
Thank you, Professor Mani, for having me in your midst. BMA has been an organization that I have been, in some sense, associated with in different capacities. Maybe because of that, BMA gave me an award several years ago. And then as award winners are called upon to do, I had to give away awards to several more deserving people in subsequent years, but I have been on BMA platforms for a while, thoroughly enjoyed BMA's hospitality. What makes this occasion very, very important, what makes me privileged, what makes me proud, is the fact that two very dear friends of mine have got together to bring out a book which reminds us in some sense of what we are all going through, but what we don't articulate, what we somehow reconcile ourselves to, and what we go on with. And they are in some sense reminding us that that's not the way to live our lives. If there is value destruction somewhere, if there is value starvation somewhere, if there is some value destroying activity or attitude of mind that exists in our midst, we need to identify it, address it, try and fix the problem and make the world a better place. Let me spend no more than a minute or a minute and a half talking about my relationship with both these gentlemen who co-authored this book. Walter has been a very dear friend for all the years that I spent in Mumbai. I have read his books, a couple of them after I released them, and I remember saying on one of those occasions, he didn't take offense, I assure you, I said there are three categories of people: those that write books, those that read books, and those that release books. But having done that, I read his books and discovered what I missed out before the book launch at that time. So I have set corrective measures in motion and managed to go through the book this time round. I said that there is no way I'm coming here. Walter had promised me a hat trick. He said, since you have released 2 books of mine, I will give you an opportunity to release a third. Having never been a great cricket player, I have to go very far back to remember when I took a wicket, forget 3 wickets. The nearest I get to is Walter facilitating my achieving a hat trick, and thank you, Walter, for that. He's somebody that I respect, admire, have great affection for, and I believe there are several more books, at least as many as have been written, that we will get to see in the coming years. And I certainly will assure you that I'll read all of them. With Gautam, I go back even much, much further. Gautam and I joined IIT Madras the same year, 1963. And I'm not going to do any arithmetic to work out how many years ago that is. He stayed on, distinguished himself as a meritorious student, went on to conquer other territories, add value in all the assignments that he handled, and then came back and is now an evangelist of value creation. And I believe that both these gentlemen are the ones that will fly the flag for value creation, alert us to the problems that ignoring value creation can lead to, and what value starvation certainly can result in. So Gautam went on to do what he did. I discovered I'm not the fastest of persons, so it took me 2 years to discover that I was not cut out to be an engineer, and then I dropped out and went on to seek my fortunes elsewhere. So, and then we connected a few years later, and then I discovered that Gautam has gone on to create a universe where he provides thought leadership in an area that not many people have looked at, not many people have given great attention to, but something that we need to consciously address if the quality of our lives, the quality of lives of those around us is to improve. It is therefore with great pleasure that I associate myself with the release of this book, Customer Value Starvation Can Kill, by Walter Vieira and Gautam Mahajan. I think there is a wealth of knowledge in a book that is not too thick, that is a slim book. It's a very easy read. It's full of anecdotes that you and I can relate to, because it's happened in all our lives, except that we haven't put pen to paper or reached out to the keyboard to actually put that down for the rest of us to understand. But beyond the anecdotes, they have alerted me, at least, to something that I always knew but was never very conscious, that the creation of value, the commitment to value, and avoidance of value destruction is not a function of where you are in society, whether you're rich or poor, young or old, because the instances that they have set out in their books demonstrate, at least 2 of them do, one which shows that the person who was higher in the hierarchy corrected something that somebody else had messed up, and exactly the opposite, where the young first level contact was trying to redress the grievance when somebody above her intervened and created problems that were completely avoidable. From almost every field, and drawing on their rich experience and identifying the lessons that they can bring to us, also to hold a mirror to us so that we can look at whether we ourselves are on occasions destroyers of value, whether we are people that should be doing better recognizing what other people do. The test that I apply in such matters is, if there is a problem, put yourself in the shoes of the person on the other side and see how it feels. And then if that is something that pains you, if that is something that irritates you, then fix the problem. Then clearly there is a problem that needs to be fixed. You could be the author or the creator of that problem, and the earlier it is fixed, the better. I was also reminded when talking about the importance of customers, which is what this book, among other things, focuses on, about a picture of Mahatma Gandhi, which you would find in the branches of most public sector banks. I haven't been there for a while, therefore I don't know where the picture stays. Sometimes these valuable pictures get removed during the painting exercise and never find back their place. But it's a matter of interest, it was for me, to find that picture which says the customer is the most important man on your premises was placed behind the chair of the branch manager. Everyone, including the customers, got to see it. The branch manager didn't get to see it, so it didn't serve as a reminder to him or her that, look, there is an exhortation that is on the wall behind you. Everyone else is saying it, and that raises expectation levels because they think that that's what you practice, and yet that's not what you do. So customers are battling hard to get to what they deserve, and I don't think generally we encourage that. Best example is if you call up a call center and see the way how they treat you. You are just another number in the scheme of things. And of course, I've had great experiences with call centers. During the introduction, it was mentioned that I chair Indigo. So this story is not about Indigo. It's about some other airline. And I was outside the Delhi airport looking at that display board which showed the arrivals of flights coming from outside. It was a day when several flights were coming late, several years ago. And I saw that one flight had an expected arrival time, which was indicated there and which was at least half an hour earlier than the time at which I looked at that board. So that was clearly outdated. And I was waiting to receive someone. So I called up that number that I had and said, look, you need to correct this. And I was told that's the time the flight is arriving at. I said, but we are past that time. We are half an hour past that time. And then I was told, no, that's what our system tells us. That is when the flight is coming. So a little later, I got a call from the person I was waiting for, who called me from there. He said, I'm collecting my baggage. We'll be with you in a minute. So I said, young fellow, so I said, look, son, but your flight is not supposed to have landed. Where are you calling me from? And I was told, no, it landed at some time. But after that, of course, sometimes we don't outgrow the child in us. We came home. The youngster was my son. We came home. And then I called up that number again to inquire when that flight was landing. And then I was told that it would land at 9:30. And I think that call was taking place around 10:20 or 10:25. So that is as much as customers are cared for. I have several other examples. I will not detain you with them. Suffice it to say that a book like this is a very timely reminder of how much better all of us can do if we choose to see where value resides in our activities and to ensure that that value informs our thinking as well as our action. And I think both Walter and Gautam have done phenomenal service by putting these instances between two covers and sharing it with a larger audience. I believe there are great learnings. I believe this message should get across, and I know that with the evangelical zeal that both these gentlemen bring, this is a message, this is a story that will reach a very, very large number of people. And I wish to support their endeavors, see that in my own small way, I relay these messages, not by way of WhatsApp forwards. I don't register at that university, but maybe by talking to people and telling them that these are real life instances, simple things which you could have got right. One which particularly, I will say this and end, I don't want to take too much time. One which particularly resonates with me is about a charger having been left behind in a hotel. I think it was Gautam's experience. Yes. And when he called up to say, look, can you find out whether it is there? His first point of contact said, if we have to send it to you, you have to send us money for couriering it. And they hadn't found the charger yet. All of what would happen once they find the charger was already being discussed. And then you had to reach to someone who was at the other end of the spectrum as far as the value creation is concerned, who said, don't bother about that, we found it and we'll send it to you. Why this is important for me is that I have on 3 occasions done this at 3 different hotels at 3 different points of time. I have a 100% track record. I've managed to recover all of them. Maybe my luck, I won't try it a 4th time. I mean, not that I did it consciously. And then when I go to Chennai, I use the same driver. And the minute I get into the car, whether to go to the airport or my sister's house, his first question to me is, have you taken your phone and your chargers? Because I think someday he got to hear that I was a veteran at this game. So I think, therefore, the reminder service also kicked in time. Walter, thank you for the hat trick. As I said, I am not a cricket player. Can't remember when I took a wicket. I read recently that even Rahul Dravid had taken a wicket in a match. So, and he's not known for that. I certainly am not. So thank you for the opportunity. I will look forward to rereading this book. I assure you it will be read 3-4 times so that I absorb the message, because the philosophy that I practice these days is observe, absorb, articulate. And that is exactly what I will do with this book. And thank you, Gautam, for the phenomenal work that you're doing in this particular area. It did not even occur to me till we reconnected after you had come back here and told me what you were up to, that value systems, values, value creation is such a rich field, and it needs to be populated with more enthusiasts, even if all of them are not evangelists. Certainly people that are enthusiastic about practicing this, about spreading the message in their own ways. And I wish sooner rather than later, this gets to the bestseller list of the shops, the websites, and wherever books are seen by people that are still interested in reading books. Thank you once again, and thank you, Professor Mani, for having me here this evening.
Thank you very much, sir. That was very, very inspirational and straight from the heart. It was very, very obvious. I'm sure Walter and Gautam would like to share their immediate responses to you. But having a person of your stature here, if you will allow me, sir, we just have one question to ask you where we thought we could seek your wisdom for the benefit of the audience. Sir, would you share with us how has the entire customer handling and customer management practices in India changed over a period of time? You have been in the service sector, you have been leading positions for so many years, and I'm sure you've seen the worst and the best. Could you throw some light on this, sir?
I think it all starts with the kind of people that you have who interact with customers. As any HR professional will tell you, and I'm sure you know it better than I do, you must hire for attitude and train for skills. If you have people that cannot relate to people, then you've got a problem even before you got started. And I think what most service organizations do is to get the kind of people who can relate to others, who have empathy, who can understand a problem almost as soon as it is articulated, and then think in terms of what are the various ways in which this could be addressed. You'll notice that at least the talk is about moving from customer satisfaction to customer delight. Whether that talk is being walked by everybody, I wouldn't stick my neck out and say it is, but it's fair to say that all good things start with a recognition of what is possible. And I think there is a recognition that you need to move in the direction of customer delight in a very, very competitive world, because if you are not going to provide service that delights the customer, he or she has other places to go to, other persons to go to provide that service. So I think, to put it very briefly, get the right people, of course, provide them training, because having a very good guy who smiles, even if that smile is natural and not artificial, getting a guy that smiles is not good enough. Smiles are good up to a point. They don't solve problems. They perhaps create a happy atmosphere in which, together you can solve problems, but must be somebody that knows. So get the right guys, train them, and then allow them to bat. And I'm sure that whatever problem is there, they'll hit it out of the park for a 6. A little while ago, young Rishabh Pant hit a few out of the park for a 6. In much the same manner, I suspect a good customer executive will know where the shoe pinches and will know how to fix that.
Great, sir. That was a very profound reply. I'll now hand over to Mr. Walter Vieira, if he would like to say a few words to Mr. Damodaran. Go ahead, sir.
Yeah, sure. Mr. Damodaran, it's been very kind of you to have spared the time to come here to this launch function and to have read the book, even though it's 176 pages, but to have taken the trouble to read the book in a few days and been for your very kind remarks on compliments of the book. We have had a long association, and Mr. Damodaran has been kind to release a book on the impatient manager, on the entrepreneur, and now this one. And it has been a long association. I'm glad that he has been here to release this, to my mind, a very significant book coming out of my stable together with Gautam. Because for me, when Gautam suggested that we write a book on customer value starvation, initially, I did not know exactly what to make of it. There was so much dinned into my head about customer value creation and customer value destruction that somewhere I forgot about starvation in between. Starvation and deprivation, which finally end up with destruction. And the more I talked to Gautam, the more convinced I felt that we must write a good handbook on this subject, because customer value starvation, and Gautam has educated me in some ways on this subject, is a cancer, but it's a very silent cancer. Slow, silent, and definite. And unfortunately, by the time the cancer has gone too far to be corrected, the destruction has begun. And nobody notices it. The people at the front end are somehow busy doing their own things and doing it at their own convenience. And the people at the top have just ignored it. I suppose they are not even conscious of it. They are just ignorant of it. And that is why this man, Jack Welch, says that if you're not thinking customer, then you're not thinking. You're not thinking at all. And Jack Welch turned around GE by just this one sentence and putting it into practice, that if you're not thinking customer, you are not thinking. And then, of course, Phil Kotler, our world's management guru, he keeps repeating at every opportunity that he gets that the bigger a company grows, the further its top management gets from the ultimate customer. They are so distant that, as my friend Gautam would say, they adopt these DNA factors. Do not annoy, in reverse. And therefore, neither the bottom of the pyramid in the company nor the top of the pyramid in the company recognizes what exactly is happening. When Mr. Damodaran talks about the many examples that I have given, you know, my style of writing is always of storytelling, and the same with my lectures, because I'm very poor at theory. So in fact, in this book, Gautam is the theory and mine are the stories. Of course, Gautam has added his stories as well to mine, but nevertheless. I was just thinking that only in the last 3 weeks, I've had at least 5 more stories to add to the book. I went in for an operation, a surgical operation, to one of Bombay's best hospitals, I think 4 weeks ago. And we paid the bill when we were checking out after my stay in the hospital. And my wife went to pay the bill and get the receipts. And the receipts were given with the signature and stamp. But my wife said, see, can't you put a 1 rupee revenue stamp? Because otherwise the insurance company does not accept this. He said, sorry, we don't have a 1 rupee revenue stamp. But she says, then the insurance company won't accept these. He said, nobody else has complained. Now, if you insist on a revenue stamp, then you could go out, I won't tell you the area where it was, to one of the shops that sell, you know, the stores, BD shops or cigarette shops. Maybe they have a revenue stamp. She, of course, did not go. She had to go back again with the 1 rupee revenue stamps and these 12 bills and get them signed again. Now, do these people at the billing department care? No. Will they keep stamps now? Just 20 rupees worth of stamps so that anybody who asks for a stamped receipt can have it. 1 rupee, 1 rupee. They can charge the patient, but no, they won't. Now, we submit it to the insurance company. The insurance company then, this allows some bandages, some needles, and some bits and pieces. Now, can one perform an operation without bandages, without needles? Are they used for some entertainment? Does this contribute substantially to increasing the bill, the hospital bill? No, it's an irritation. But if you complain about it, then there will be a delay of another 4 weeks till it's made allowable. Customer valuation, starvation. So my solution is to go to another insurance company from National Insurance Company. But is that the solution? No, because I'm over 80 and no other insurance company will accept me. So I'm stuck. So I come home in a taxi where the petrol price has gone up. Unfortunately, a few days before they go down by 18 paise. Customer valuations, starvation, yes again, until I reach home. All the time we are caught in this loop. And what shall we do? Now, this is a book that has been written in a style and a format, and I must tell you, to get that format right, it has taken a lot of trouble. Maybe 5 different editions of this book, corrected, recorrected, again reformatted, some agreement, some disagreement. And why? Because it had to be the kind of book that will be read quickly by the lowest in the pyramid and the highest in the pyramid, so that consciousness, as Mr. Damodaran rightly said, will be created at every level in the organization. Unless that consciousness is created at every level in the organization, nothing is going to happen. So it's like, you know, that old story about they did a survey among men to see how they would notice a beautiful woman passing by. And many of the men said, yes, we'll look at her face, we'll look at her hairstyle, we'll look at this and that. But the highest number of men said, we will look at our wives. Whether they are looking, to see whether they are looking at this beautiful girl passing by. That, in essence, is the story of customer value starvation. The silent killer, unnoticed, pancreatic cancer kind of thing, discovered too late to do anything about, even if you've got the money and the ability to travel wherever in the world that can be cured, cannot happen. And so companies die. This book also gives a formula of what can be done to prevent this happening. If one, right from top management to down the pyramid, can take heed of this, make notes, and go into an activity level that will be a program to convert the company. And it's not impossible. I've seen abroad, for me, some of the beautiful examples are Costco, one of the finest retail shops. I wouldn't say it's retailing for wholesalers, but it's one of the finest chains, selling chains that I've ever seen, where each employee carries a badge which says 32 years, proud to be at Costco. And they treat every customer as if he's a special guest. I must say, I see shades of it when I went for my vaccination, COVID vaccination, at the BMC Jumbo Center at BKC. For once, the Bombay Municipal Corporation became so customer-oriented that I saw staff even helping elderly patients after the vaccination into their car. Can you imagine? The Bombay Municipal Corporation people going out of their way to create customer value, creation, far away from starvation, and certainly very far away from destruction. I would have been happy if my mentor, my guide, my guru, Professor Kotler, would have had today the time to spend to talk about this subject as well and throw in his views, which are not greatly different from what I've said or what maybe Mahajan will say. But unfortunately, he had a personal emergency, and he could not make a personal appearance today. But out of our long friendship, both with me and Mahajan, he sent just a 1.5 minute or 2 minute message on the launch of the book. So I'm sorry that some of the people who are attending the seminar or the launch and who would have thought that they would listen to at least 5 minutes of the world's guru on marketing would be disappointed. But I'm sure there will be other occasions, or at least to make that happen and to get Mr. Damodaran and Kotler together, maybe Gautam and I will write another book. And we will have that launched by BMA and call you as past president. I have finished. Now.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. It was lovely listening to you, as always, at your very, very erudite as well as humorous best. I will now request Mr. Mahajan to say a few words. In all fairness, I should have introduced you, Mr. Vieira, before handing over to you. But I was very keen that we have you say a few words to Mr. Damodaran. He's had a very, very long day and has been kind enough to join us just at the right time, coming out of a board meeting for the last 2 days. So we really appreciate your presence, Damodaran, sir. For those of us who still need to know a little about Mr. Vieira after having listening to him now, he's often credited as one of the first management consultants of India in the true sense of the word, specializing in marketing, strategy, and business. A career of over 45 years plus. Of course, the one organization which he used to work for was after he completed his pharmacy, was Boots, and then subsequently went on to launch India's first marketing consultancy organization, the Marketing Advisory Services, popularly known as MAS. Authored over 16 books, almost every one of them is a must in any business management course, college, and institution. Former president of the IMCI and author, trainer, and consultant par excellence, was already visible. He leaked out how young he was. At this point in time, he said 80 plus, but I can assure you, he's still very young today, except that he was much younger 30 years ago when I had the unique honor of meeting up with him when I used to be with the Tata Institute of Social Sciences and continued the interaction. Thank you, Mr. Vieira. You've always been an inspiration for us, and we'll come back to you for further discussion on the book. But I think now it's time to listen to Mr. Gautam Mahajan. Over to you, Gautam.
Can you hear me?
Perfect.
Okay. It's a great pleasure for me to be here with a lot of friends. And I want to start by thanking Walter for being such a great partner. We had fun writing this book, even though we had to rewrite it so many times. The audience who's come to watch us, I must thank them because they're foregoing cricket and watching England, I hope, lose some wickets. That's amazing. And of course, thanks to Professor Mani and the Bombay Management Association and to Mr. Damodaran, my old friend. And, I learned a lot about why he left IIT, and no one talks about his stint as the youngest chief secretary in Assam and things of that sort. So he's got a lot of feathers in his cap. Lastly, I want to thank Phil Kotler for bringing Walter and me together to write this book. Phil Kotler says marketing is all about creating value. And I guess he's saying don't destroy value, do not starve people of value. Philip Kotler told me that I needed to write a lighter book. He suggested I team up with Walter Vieira, whom he described as Asia's greatest marketer and perhaps the best speaker on the subject. I had met Walter before and had had a delightful chat with him, we reconnected to write this book. And let me just show you the book. This is Customer Value Starvation Can Kill. In my work with customer value and value creation, I noticed that most consultants want to get companies to delight customers. First, giving customer delight is very difficult. In many of my lectures, I ask people, give me a good example of something that delights customers, and they can't think of anything other than normal things like, be on time and all that. That's not customer delight. But more importantly, when they start focusing on customer delight, they forget that they're ignoring the basics of the customer, and they're not really trying to get rid of customer value starvation, and therefore it gets ignored. And so I would tell people, please look at things differently. And there's so many examples: waiting for the serviceman to come to your house and you don't know when he'll come, or waiting for the call agent to take your call and you're told, don't get off, it'll take a minute. I mean, I've had to call Bank of America in the US and been on the call 30 minutes being told you'll be connected in 2 minutes. Or you get the wrong product and you try returning it, or you get a call for a satisfaction rating on the service when the service hasn't been done. Or in my recent case with HDFC, I paid my bill for the insurance, and 20 days later, I'm still getting SMSs saying your bill is due to be paid. So, or having a supplier tell you, these are my rules. This is the way we do things. Didn't you know? I mean, as if I'm supposed to know the rules. Doesn't he want to know my rules? Doesn't the supplier want to work with my rules? My rules don't matter. It's a case of the bigger guy taking on the smaller guy. So if I were if the customer was Tata's rules would hold, but with the customer is Walter or me, no one gives a damn. So these are things, and then you can't get to the right person to solve your problem. You just go around in circles. And the worst thing on American Express, I would call and they would say, this is Joe speaking. And I'd call a day later and the person would say, I'm Joe speaking, but it's a woman. I mean, because they want to say that the same person is talking. I mean, as if I can't tell the difference between a man and a woman. Or as Walter had to do, wait for a taxi that never came and almost missed his flight. Or buying an air conditioner, which happened this month from a Tata company, which was when delivered to me, was actually made in December of 2019. And when I tried to return it or exchange it or pay more to get a better one, they said, no, those are our rules. So, or you get a drop-down menu on the net and your complaint is not on that drop-down menu. What do? You have no recourse. The list is endless, but easy to solve once companies realize these are causing value starvation. So one of the reasons for the book is to get people to realize, companies to realize, people to realize that there is something called value starvation in their lives, in their businesses, in their dealings with businesses, and the businesses' dealings with them. And we need to get this aggravation stopped. And we need to get companies to decide to solve these problems. I can talk forever about issues I've faced around the world, but we need you as a reader to think of problems you're facing when you read the book. We want you as an executive to think of the problems of this kind that your company is causing to customers. And one of the things I want executives to do when they get into the office is not to take off their customer hat and put on their executive hat, because all of us have one thing in common: we're all customers. But the moment we go behind our desk, we become executives. We work for the company, and we try to make the company, and Mr. Damodaran, you relate to this, as being inhuman. The company is an it. The company is really made up of people. It is human, but by pretending to be inhuman, it doesn't need to have governance. It doesn't need to take care of customers. It doesn't need to do anything. And so these are things that we need people to start thinking about differently. World would be a happier place. Companies would be happier not having many complaints. In fact, I'm trying to get people to get to zero complaints, like we got to zero defects. And then companies will find that they're saving so much money by not having to solve complaints and by having happier and more loyal customers. We want all of you to think about customer value starvation. We want you to all come back to us with what has caused customer value starvation for you. And we want to have all of us enjoy life without having to put up with customer value starvation. I hope you'll enjoy the book. Professor
Thank
Mani?
you so much, Gautam. Yeah, I am here. Thank you so much, Gautam. That was a wonderful sharing of what went behind the scenes in producing a masterpiece book like this. For some of us who have already Googled through this book, it was released just this month in the United States of America. And we only thought, considering both Mr. Vieira and Mr. Mahajan being stalwarts in India, it would be so appropriate that we could have a book launch in India too. And here we are, breaking all barriers of distance, location, geography, and getting together to launch this wonderful book this evening by none other than the very eminent Mr. Damodaran. Not to worry about cricket, it still appears that India is on top of the game at this point in time, but we can still continue our learning journey here with the stalwarts who are present. I'd like to take 2 minutes to share with each one of you.
Would like to say one more thing, if you don't mind. You said the book is published in the US, and it's awfully expensive. It's about $40 odd. And Walter and I are trying to prevent customer value starvation and working very hard to publish the book in India and sell it at 200 rupees or 250 rupees. And then we can thumb our noses at the American version.
All right. Okay. Thanks for that input. I was trying to share with you, as Mr. Mahajan said, that he is an engineer and has with him in his pocket, if I may say so, 18 patents in the United States of America in the field of plastics and packaging, but yet went on to believe that his calling was in the field of customer value, and therefore is the president of the Customer Value Foundation, is also a president of a very, very famous journal and edits the same on creating value. Of course, as a profession, a business consultant, works with several organizations of repute. And today we are seeing him in his very, very distinguished avatar as an author of this eminent book too. We shall continue to engage with them, Mr. Vieira and Mr. Gautam Mahajan, on the book and some of their experiences, not only about the book, but in marketing and handling customers. We have distinguished participants here from all over the world. And I'm so delighted to see in our midst Professor Ravi Dhingra. Professor Ravi Dhingra is joining us from the United States, from the Sacred Heart University, Connecticut. He, of course, is from Amchi, Mumbai, an alumnus of the Jamnalal Bajaj Institute of Management Studies. Thank you, Professor Dhingra. You made up for the little disappointment we had that Philip Kotler could not join us from United States. But here we have another marketing professor of eminence who's also a consultant in the United States, with us here this evening. We'd like to have you say a few words, and you're welcome to discuss one or two issues with our eminent authors, Mr. Walter Vieira and Mr. Gautam Mahajan. Over to you, Ravi.
Thank you, Professor Mani. Thank you very much. And no, nowhere near. There are not too many people who would be able to fill Professor Kotler's shoes, and I don't pretend to do that. I enjoyed the insights of Mr. Damodaran and Mr. Walter Vieira and Mr. Mahajan. Very, very interesting. Much of the same issues that many of the companies are wrestling with here in the United States in terms of how do you delight the customer. And I was amused to see some of the same kind of issues that you face with some of the institutions in India that you face here. Even though they're private institutions, they have acquired this bureaucratic persona with, here are our rules, did you not read the fine print? And so customer delight is, of course, on top of everyone's mind, big buzzword. A lot of companies talk about it. Few are really able to live that mission or vision of delighting the customer. And if I might just add, one of the problems I see over the years with a lot of the clients in a variety of industries that we've done work with, this whole business of dealing with the customer, the business of marketing is looked upon as a function. This is the job of the marketing department or the customer sales and service team. And I don't think you can really integrate customer delight into your organization and for your customers until you make marketing a philosophy that permeates throughout the company. Whether you're in finance, whether you are in sales, whether you are in admin, marketing is every individual's responsibility in terms of dealing with the customer. And that's kind of where I think many of these companies fall short in executing the concept of customer delight. They think this is the mission of the marketing and the sales department, not really something that concerns us. How do you call it? The silo thinking. And until we kind of change this thinking that marketing permeates, marketing philosophy, the marketing process permeates the entire organization, and it is every individual's responsibility to be part of delighting the customer, whether you're a retail, it's easier done in a retail and service environment, but a little challenging when you are selling fast-moving consumer goods. Every product has to delight the customer. How do you create that added value? How do you create that competitive advantage? Your unique value proposition, as Mr. Vieira was talking about earlier. So I thoroughly enjoyed hearing all of you. I shall remember observe, absorb, and articulate. Very, very pointed. Thank you, Mr. Damodaran. Thank you, Mr. Vieira. And I enjoyed listening to all of you and your wise perspectives. Thank you.
Thanks, Ravi, for sharing your perspectives. Mr. Vieira, would you like to respond to some of the points that Ravi made?
Professor, but I have another commitment, if you will excuse.
All right, sir.
I had sought
I
anticipatory bail earlier. But,
yes,
Sure.
sir. Yes, sir.
it's the application.
Thank you so much, sir. It was an honor having you with
No,
us.
my
Good
privilege
evening.
and time.
Bye.
Thank you, Gautam. Thank you, Walter.
Welcome. Thank you.
Thank you.
I have nothing much to add to what Professor Dhingra has said. I think he has summarized this very well. It's true. Everybody pays lip service to the concept of customer delight. Very, very, very few really implement what they call customer delight. And that is a huge gap to be filled. It is a big challenge because, as he said, you can't have silos. Peter Drucker had once said that there are only two profit centers in a company. One is marketing and the other is innovation. All the others are costs. Now, when you say a thing like this, even from Peter Drucker, it is taken as an insult to all the other departments. But it's not an insult. It is exactly what Professor Dhingra has said, that every department has to be marketing oriented, and every individual in the company, right from the chairman to the doorman, is in the marketing department. That is how you make the company profitable. I went to Marks and Spencer's in London, and they would not tell me where the warm underwear is stocked. They said, maybe on the second floor. I went to the second floor. They said, well, I think it's somewhere far down there. Why don't you take a walk and see? And I finally had to find it, the whole area, myself. Although there were lots of assistants floating around, nobody was keen to help me. When I went to the counter to pay, and there was a person there with a measuring tape around his neck, I said, would you mind just checking out whether the collar is the right size for my body? He says, yes, it's all right. I can see that without even using the tape. So I believed him, took it home, and found it was one size larger. Anyway, to cut a long story short, I came down the 2 floors and I came to the exit, and I forgot whether I'd entered Marks and Spencer's from the right or from the left, from the underground station that I'd come from. So I asked this lady, one of the people there of Marks and Spencer's, I said, ma'am, can you tell me, do I turn right or do I turn left at the exit to go to the underground? She just looked at me, and with a very sour face, she said, I don't know. Now, here is a girl who's coming to work every day. Obviously, she knows whether it's the left or the right, the underground station. Is it not just courtesy to say, yes, sir, just get out and turn left, or whatever it is? So here was Marks and Spencer spending all their time at the top level collecting funds, because they were in a funds problem, working out a new strategy of selling Marks and Spencer products. They feel that the old strategy, which worked for 30 years, is no longer relevant, and so on and so forth. And yet forgetting the customer at the final point of customer contact. I must tell you, they lost a customer in me. I've not entered a Marks and Spencer store since. Not to say that it's going to create a great loss for them, but I don't know how many Walter Vieiras there are whom they have antagonized this way. And what are they collecting the funds for? And what is the great new strategy that they will work out to make the great Marks and Spencer resurrection? It won't be resurrected. It will be dead, stone dead, and gone. And companies like that. So this is as Gautam says, we could relay, relay story after story after story, and so can you, if you just take note of it. But most of us just cancel this, and we don't want to bother about these small things, so forget it. And you keep on forgetting until you have an alternative, which you find is better, cheaper, etc., and faster, and therefore you dump your old supplier like a dead horse.
Sure. Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
I'd like to acknowledge also the presence of Mr. Ernest Fernandez. We, from the Bombay Management Association, hold him with a lot of regard because he's one of our earlier presidents of the Bombay Management Association. And he has continued to guide and mentor all of us over a period of time. And the credit for this evening's program actually should go to him, because it was he who suggested this idea to me that why can't we plan an event like this? Thank you, Mr. Fernandez, for always being with us as our mentor and guide. I'd like you to please say a few words on this occasion, and you're welcome to continue the discussion where we are at this point in time. Over to you, Mr. Ernest Fernandez.
Thank you, Professor Mani. I'd like to congratulate Walter, a friend of mine from my college days, for another great book on a very topical subject. Despite the level of competition rising, customer starvation is still very much in evidence, not only in India, but I think in other parts of the world, as Walter has given us some examples. The question I have to ask is about computerization. Computerization has been a great boon to the Indian customer. If you go to a bank, earlier they used to manually fill up your passbook. Now you can put it, give it to them, and with computerization, you get your balance and all the entries. But computerization has also resulted in customer starvation. And I'd like to say that if you take, for example, you go to a bank, give a check, and they say your account is blocked. Why has it been blocked? Because there was no withdrawal in the last 6 months. So you tell them, well, if I'm to resurrect this account, what do I have to do? You've got to fill up a KYC. The KYC involves all the people who are joint holders in the account. Some may not be in Bombay, some will be abroad. Till then, the account is blocked. So doesn't the frontline manager or staff should be given the authority to override what comes on the computer? This is something which is a big challenge in India. If you take, for example, income tax, if by mistake you put the assessment year instead of the financial year, or rather the other way around, an income tax officer cannot solve that problem for you. It has to be done with several levels. And at the end of it, you may not be able to do it, as I have found. So computerization has been a great bane, a great boon. How would you overcome this problem? Some suggestions.
Gautam, would you like to take this question?
Well, Ernest, that's an excellent question, because we face that every day. Before answering your question, I'll give you an example. I used to get a license for a certain thing from the Delhi police, who is the licensing authority in Delhi. And this year they made it computerized. And I'm not the smartest guy in the world, but I'm not that computer illiterate. And I just couldn't fill out the form on the net, and I kept getting kicked out, and they wouldn't tell me why. If they told me why, I would have solved the problem. But they never, the computer never told me why it's not accepting my application. So finally, I went to the police licensing office, and I said I'm a senior citizen, and they were kind enough to have a guy do this, and he filled out the form for me, and everything was fine. Now, the next step is that they have to give me a date to come and fill out the application and do the stuff. And it's 4 weeks. It says on the net, it says it'll take a week. It's 4 weeks gone by and there's no date. And there's nothing you can do. So I think the problem that you're talking about, the solution to it is the people who design these things must understand that someone who's illiterate is filling it out. And if there is a problem, that he must have a recourse to the problem. But they don't care because they look at it as bureaucrats. This is what I want. I mean, I got a Reserve Bank bond, and they wanted my check number, my IFC number. They wanted my 3 or 4 other things from the check. And of course, they wanted the canceled check. It's just a waste of time. And no one really cares. So I think, Ernest, the problem is that people don't care enough, and they don't see the starvation. They only see what they want. So this will not change till they see the starvation.
All right, I think that's something very, very interesting, which you could correlate back to the theme of the book too. I have one question for both of you, stalwarts who have written this book. This might have been perhaps the first time experience for both of you when you actually wrote a book digitally, considering that we've been in lockdown for 1 year and the opportunities for physical meetings, interactions being limited. What were some of the challenges you faced in actually producing this book? Can we hear some of your experiences, please?
Walter, you want to go first, or you want me to go first?
I would suggest you go first.
Okay. I really didn't have any challenges because Walter was such a delight to work with, and he always picked up the phone or answered the phone as soon as he could, and we were able to move very well, very fast, and we were able to discuss the pros and cons of putting something in or taking something out. I really didn't have a problem.
Yeah. I must say that neither did I. I think we managed extremely well. Maybe we might not have managed as well if we had to keep meeting personally. Because when it came to the 5th round of manuscripts, I was prepared to throw it away in the dustbin. But having to do it digitally, I think saved the situation. But I think I'd really not thought of it. I just took it as something that just happened because of COVID, and we just could not meet. I had not gone to Delhi in more than a year. He had not come to Bombay for more than a year, and much of the work we had to do was always on the net and on the phone. So I would say that maybe all future books should be written similarly, with not much time spent in travel and so on. I don't know whether it will.
All right.
It's a different scene.
Okay.
For me, it's a first time experience, and a good one.
Yeah, I guess that's wonderful to hear. In fact, for many people during this lockdown, they've done many unique things, but I guess this is the first time we came across a pair of eminent people who got together to actually write a book. Yeah. I hand over now to Indrapal Singh Ji, another very senior functionary from the Bombay Management Association, our past president, has been an industry leader and been with Godrej for over 40 years, and now a consultant. Over to you, Indrapal Ji.
Yeah, thank you, Professor Mani, and congratulations, Walter and Mr. Mahajan, for the wonderful book that I have yet to read, but I'm sure it would be very worthwhile, even probably at $40, if it contains what all you have described in it. In India, what I have found is that there is a lot of individual excellence, in the sense, small people giving excellent service. For example, during the pandemic, we have Fruit Wala, who routinely asks us, "Aapko market se aur kuch chahiye?" And he brings around so many other things along with that, a nariyal or whatever we need, some top-up vegetables and stuff like that. So we find that he is very much customer oriented. He said, आपको market में आने की जरूरत नहीं, आप senior citizens हैं, तो आपको कुछ भी चाहिए, कोई दवाई चाहिए, कुछ भी चाहिए, आप मुझे phone कर दीजिए, मैं आपको दे जाऊँगा. So this sort of thing happens. But in the larger organizations, there are very few. For example, we had at the DMA platform itself, one Mr. Ramesh Iyer talking about Mahindra Finance and how he created a 1 lakh crore portfolio of loans by giving excellent service in tier 3, tier 4 towns and rural villages and so on. So that sort of stories also we have heard. But mainstream, the companies who advertise a lot in the newspapers, on television and other media, good service that is a little less forthcoming. I have examples of Sony, and this gentleman, he came and installed a flat TV in less than 15 minutes. And I asked him, "Aapko kitna training mila?" So he said, "Sir, humko 6 mahine mein training dete hain. Then another 3 months we have to go around with as an apprentice with the senior person to see how he does the work, and then we are given individual calls to handle." So my submission is that one of the root causes of poor service is lack of training and kind of investment in training that is required to handle customers, particularly customer complaints if these are technical. People simply do not know the job. They don't have the right tools apart from the IVRs and telephone kind of tyrannies that we come to experience day in and day out. I also agree with Professor Dhingra saying that marketing is a philosophy, is more talked about like all other philosophies, but they don't permeate. Very difficult to do so. So any reactions on what I said from both of you, Professor Vieira and Mr. Mahajan?
Well, I would say that I agree with you entirely. You know, the smaller the organization, and the example you gave is of a one-man company. The one-man company has the opportunity and does provide greatest customer delight because he is the top and the bottom of the pyramid at the same time. And as Kotler says, the larger a company becomes, the further its top management goes from the ultimate customer. And that is why, you know, one must admire companies like Costco, where the two partners, the founders, spend a whole day every week at one of the stores, actually attending to customers or making bills or just observing, going around. You know, they have testing areas, new products, which they give free to passers-by customers and just to test out so that they can buy next time. Observing everything. They are on the ground. They are not insulated against the wiles of the multitude of customers as they would like to see them. You know, these crowds who will soil their hands. No, there is a bank in California where the managing director spends every week one morning in different positions as cashier, as front-end executive, meeting customers, whatever, to try out what happens at the ultimate point of customer contact. Starbucks is another company where the founder spends time at stores. And many years ago, when I worked in the pharmaceutical industry, I was extremely impressed with a German managing director, or Swiss, of a German company. I think, I forget the name, it was Merck maybe. He used to spend 2 days or 3 days every month going into tier 2 towns, the Rajkot, Aurangabad, etc., and take a car from there and drive into the villages and other small towns and come back. And he used to check out where the product was not available, where there was greater movement, what is the competition doing. A man who left Warden Road for 3 days and went out, not to Delhi and Calcutta and Madras, but went to Aurangabad, Ahmednagar, Amravati. And he knew so much about the country and about the sales of his own products more than his regional managers. So nobody dared to draw circles around him. This is what is required. When we say, permeate, marketing should permeate the whole organization, no silos. This is what is meant. That everybody from the chairman to the doorman must be in the marketing department, but that may be an exaggeration, must be customer oriented. And in the old days, it was the telephone operator first who was the first PR manager. The way she spoke,
Yes.
the tone in which she spoke, the way she greeted, good morning. But I used to many times say, have people from large companies, a large steel company, for example, I used to phone up with a client of mine. Hello, kaun baat kar raha hai? As if I've come to raid the company. And I'm in Bombay, and they are somewhere out there in Orissa. Hello. Is that how you warm up to customers or anybody trying to contact the company? There, I must say, the United States, I have been recording this for many, many years, from 40 years ago. They may be hopeless when you meet the person, but on the telephone, companies' people are outstanding. You feel like actually going and meeting them next day. The way they are trained to speak on the telephone, maybe training, yes. But then training has to be, like Mr. Damodaran had said, it's not just attitude, it is aptitude, attitude, and then implementation. So,
Thank you, sir. I'd like to welcome in our midst Rajalakshmi Rao. She's a well-known figure in industry and is also an independent director of several company boards. Thank you for joining us, and over to you for the next question.
Thank you, Professor Mani. I guess you can hear me. I take
Perfect.
it you hear me. Yeah. It is fantastic because both people who have written the book are brilliant people and good friends. Gautam Mahajan is Indo-American Chamber past president, and Walter Vieira is a well-known person in every field. And Mr. Damodaran is also on my board in Tech Mahindra. So all three are wonderful people. Philip Kotler is my hero. Of course, we missed him. But I want to ask you, you've given so many beautiful examples, and I'm very impressed, and I think it's an awesome book that you've written. I find the customer satisfaction is something which comes, at least in India for sure, it is to start from the top to the bottom. Bottom can never be, tuned to customer satisfaction. They only want to just sell and make, the bosses feel happy. Like that a beautiful example you gave about BMC. BMC being so good and seeing you to the door, that means it's a big change in BMC itself. So it has come obviously from the top. I would not say in all fields it would have happened in BMC, but at least it started there because the top has made sure that this kind of welcoming attitude and helping attitude is given to all the customers or patients or anybody who's come for the COVID vaccines. My point is, in COVID, people have become actually very sensitive to help each other. This is a beautiful time in societies when they hated each other, they came together and helped each other. I think it's fantastic. So a lot of things have been happening. Things just changed. We all changed during this COVID time. I think this is the time we should ensure that the top like as you said, pyramid from top to bottom and bottom to top. but basically I feel top to bottom, because say the bank chairman makes sure that it just filters through all over. This is the most important thing. So will the insurance company make sure, because they have these terrible agreements which nobody understands in the fine print. So they have to understand and start working towards, and then train the pyramid. And then I think customer satisfaction is the next thing that will happen everywhere. If BMC can do, anybody can do. I mean, I think you all have to now take this forward for the next book, how to make the top people understand, how to create this as a customer satisfaction, and make customers feel like they're the most important people in this whole ball game. I think you can make that effort once more, since you both have tied up and brilliant minds. And I feel we have to find solutions. I mean, we know the problems, but solutions are not happening. So I just thought I will just put it back to you, since you have talked about this subject at length, and your own thing, like how Starbucks and various companies are doing. In India they can do too, and I think India is ready to gear up for all this. There's a right time to start telling people and training people. It'll work.
Great. Thank you. Thank you for making a very nice point. Mr. Mahajan, would you like to have one response to that comment?
Okay. We've been doing a lot of work with companies around the world, like State Farm Insurance and Wisconsin Energies and GE Capital in Stamford, Connecticut. And I think one of your people, Inderji, was from Stamford, Connecticut, I think, and or from Connecticut, Sacred Heart University.
Yes.
What we do, Rajalakshmi, and it's good to see you, is that we start with the top with a customer strategy rather than with a business strategy. The customer strategy is used to build the business strategy, and it forces different departments to have customer responsibility. And everyone has to have a responsibility for the customer. And in fact, I say to someone who says, I'm responsible for the customer, that you're working with one hand tied behind your back, because one man cannot take care of the customer. The entire company has to do that. So basically we do that, but we also have a bottom-up thing where we start with customer-centric circles with the bottom line, the bottommost people, the frontline people. And we find that very often they're able to improve their performance much more and improve the sales and improve the customer satisfaction. So it's a two-way street. It can't just be a top-down. It has to be a bottom-up and a top-down. And eventually, I just want to say that companies have to think of the convenience of the customer versus the convenience of the company, and the convenience of the customer has to come first. And one of the reasons many companies can manage to do what they're doing badly is that all the competition is doing the same. And so I often say that it's a cream of the crop that's on top. And really, we don't want everyone to be crappy. We want some people to be the king of the market by really distinguishing themselves. And that can happen from the top and the bottom.
Great. Thank you so much. As they rightly say, all good things have to come to a pause. We don't say they come to a stop, because in the digital world, learning can go on forever. I'm sure most of you have felt that this is a wonderful book which you would like to read more about. And I'm sure you're even more motivated by realizing that it's full of stories, anecdotes, lifetime experiences, which you can relate and put to practice. As Mr. Vieira had said, we were expecting Mr. Philip Kotler, the marketing guru, to be here with us. He could not join us due to a family emergency, has been kind enough to send a video, which we will play at the end of this session about 5 minutes from now. But I'd like to take this opportunity on behalf of BMA to thank first Mr. Damodaran, and of course, Mr. Vieira, Mr. Mahajan, for this wonderful session, a very unique session that we had today on the BMA platform. I'm going to call upon our former president, Shri M D Agarwalji, who himself is a prolific writer, a person with a lot of interest both in teaching and technology, to say a few words and propose the formal vote of thanks on behalf of BMA, after which we shall have the video of Philip Kotler. Over to you, Agarwalji.
Thank you very much, Professor Mani. It was really a delighted moment for me. Last 1 hour, 30 minutes. My, distance grew. Mr. Damodaran, sir, you may not be, I have not been in constant touch with you, but when I was President of Computer Society of India, we used to always admire to invite you. And your tips, what you have, bite, I will say, first of all, your some experiences, and then about the books of these two par excellence authors is really, a great learning for me, and I think for all audience. Thank you very much, sir, for gracing this occasion of, inaugurating this book, launching this book. Thank you very much, sir. We will be always reminded with your learned advices and the kind of the in-depth knowledge you are having about the Indian situation, how it can be applied. Thank you very much. And this subject of customer value starvation, I am the teacher for digital transformation, and the three pillars of the digital transformation. The first pillar, we discovered that the customer engagement and customer experience, how we enhance the customer experience and customer engagement. And the Gautam Mahajan sir has talked about that, digital aspect of that. And the second aspect is operation excellence, and third aspect is the business model change, business model transformation. So this customer experience has become now even a very, very generic aspect of any of the technologists. If they don't understand that, how to engage with the customers, how the technology can be used for that. I think I'm sure, sir, I'm going to read you this book. It is I will say it is a lost case. So this sort of a story, or this sort of advice, or intellectual work which you both have par excellence authors has created, I think it is very good for all of us, very useful, should be all business people, and without customer. I remember attending Peter Drucker's lecture in US sometime back in 2000. And Peter Drucker came and I say that, what is the customer check should never bounce. That was my first lesson, though I was an IT person. But then I heard Peter Drucker saying that customer checks should never bounce. That was a learning for me, and I tried to adopt that thing. And when I came back to my department in DPCL, I say there will be no from my desk. Whosoever comes, whether I am the strain of the resources, but there will be no from my desk. That is my problem. How I discover, how I find the solution for my customer. Thank you very much, sir. And this book should be a landmark, study for even for the students, who wants to learn the subject of customer engagement, customer value, like that. Thank you very much. I will once again, on behalf of BMA, all participants, who has graced this occasion. I forget the name of the gentleman who spoke from US, and and some of the participants who have raised questions. It was a delighted moment, a quite learning moment for all of us. Thank you very much once again.
Thank you so much, Mr. Agarwal, for doing the honors on our behalf.
Dear Walter, Gautam, I am so
Go ahead,
pleased
Oindrila.
to see your book on customer value starvation. That book will be an eye-opener to many companies that think they are fully satisfying their customers, but leaving much behind. So the book will help companies do a better job. And all of this is about how do we increase the common good. That's what both of you are busy doing. You're showing how companies can do a better job, which will create more wealth for more people, assuming there's good and equal and fair distribution. So I'm currently spending a lot of time myself thinking of the common good and your contributions to the common good. Take care, Phil.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Well, on that note, let me, on behalf of BMA, thank every one of you who were here with us this evening. We registered 91 people from start till now, who I'm sure were enthralled with the various messages of knowledge and wisdom that we gained from Mr. Damodaran, Mr. Walter Vieira, Mr. Gautam Mahajan, and of course, the very, very crisp and soulful message from Mr. Philip Kotler. Thank you everyone for making this journey that BMA embarked way back in April, the digital BMA journey, a success. I'm delighted to share that we've done more than 100 webinars on this platform, which was actually possible only with the support of so many of you who thought that this was a good opportunity to get together to learn, though on a digital platform. May I request everyone to put on their videos. As a good BMA parampara, we'd like to have a digital photograph of all of us present here with the eminent authors, Mr. Walter Vieira and Mr. Gautam Mahajan, to serve as a memory of this wonderful learning experience. Please put on your videos, give our digital secretariat team an opportunity to capture your smiles so that we can share this moment with you at a later point in time. While we do that, may I quickly add on to share with you that the coming Wednesday, as part of our Wednesday Wisdom webinar, we have a very, very interesting speaker, the principal scientific advisor to the Prime Minister's office and the Government of India, the former chairman of the Bhabha Atomic Research Center and the director there too, Dr. R. Chidambaram, is going to grace the occasion coming Wednesday. And the topic that he's going to share with us is how India can have sustainable development by developing a knowledge economy. So don't for a minute think we are going to talk about nuclear power and space research, but we're talking about the knowledge economy, which is so very critical for every one of us here this evening. Oindrila, Supriya, Deepa, and Lakshmi are busy capturing your smiles, so keep smiling. We have 3 screens to cover, so I request that bit of digital patience from all of us. Thank you so much once again, everybody, for being here. Thank you, Mr. Vieira. Thank you, Mr. Gautam Mahajan, for your wonderful session.
Thank you, Professor.
Thank you, Professor. Thank you for all your help.
Thank you.
Thank you, Gautam. Bye.
Thank you, Walter. Write another book together.